Alright, what's up guys? Welcome back to Extreme Sports and More. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Trek Roscoe 7 2021 model. Now, I've had this bike for around 3 months and I really enjoy it so far. So today, we're going to be talking about the good as well as the bad about this bike. So make sure you stick around to see the full review. So first, let's start off with the price because that's one of the most important things when considering a bike. This bike comes in at $1,349, which is pretty well priced considering the components that you're getting with this bike. Alright, now let's move on to some of the critical components of this bike. Firstly, starting off with a fork. This bike comes with a Rockshocks Judy SL air spring fork. It has a hydraulic lockout as well as rebound adjustment. And this fork has 120 millimeters of travel. Overall, I really like this fork because it's super responsive. Obviously, it's an air spring. So for me, that was a huge upgrade from my Trek Marlin 5, which I had before, which of course was coil. I've been able to plow through root gardens as well as rock gardens with this fork with no issues overall. No failures. I really like this fork and it's performed great. Alright, now let's move on to the wheels. Firstly, you're getting the Bontrager Line 40 tubeless ready rims. Overall, the rims are wide as well as very strong. I haven't had any issues with it denting or anything like that. It comes with a Maxxis Rekon tubeless ready set of tires, which are plus size tires. I really like these because they're super wide and they give me a ton of coverage over the ground so that I can hit stuff much easier without having to worry about slipping around as much. I really like them as well because they carry a lot of momentum. So if you're going down the trail really fast at a good speed, you're going to get a lot of momentum. And another plus is you're going to sound like a TIE fighter when going down a pavement driveway or anything like that, super high speeds. So I really like these tires overall. So I suppose the one downside for these tires is that they're 27.5, which is sort of a downside, but also sort of an upside. The problem with that is that you're not going to be able to roll over stuff as easier as if you had 29ers or something that's larger than those 27.5 wheels. But for me, I haven't had very many issues with that. It also makes the bike a little bit more nimble. So I kind of like that because you can bail easier. It's not nearly as tall. So when you're trying to bail off of a failed jump or something like that, hopefully you don't have to do that. But it does make it a little bit easier. Also, the bike's a little bit smaller. Now let's move on to the cockpit. So they come with the Bontrager nylon lock-on grips, which overall haven't held up too great, but they definitely do work. The only issue I'm having right now is they're kind of deteriorating. That's because I don't really use gloves that much. I'm just using it straight on my bare hands. But if you look closely at the grips, you can sort of see a little bit of wear on them. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but they are overall good grips. The only problem is, of course, they're wearing just a little bit. For handlebars, you're getting Bontrager alloy, and these are 750 millimeters in width. I really like these handlebars because they are nice and wide, and that makes doing tricks and stuff in the air, hitting jumps, all that sort of stuff a lot easier. The one issue with having these wider handlebars is it makes it harder to go through tight areas with tight trees, but overall that's not an issue, and it's a huge plus to have wider handlebars. For brakes, you're getting the Shimano MT200 hydraulic disc brakes. I really like the levers because they are nice and wide as well, which makes it easier. You can go with one finger. On my old Marlin, I couldn't go with one finger because I had the Tektro mineral oil or whatever those are called. Overall, those weren't great brakes. You couldn't go with one finger. You had to go with like 2 or sometimes 3 when it was bad. A lot smaller rotor size, and so overall, much better brakes on the Roscoe 7 for me. For your shifter, you're getting the Sram SX Eagle 12-speed shifter. I really haven't had any issues with this. Alright, now let's move on to one of the most critical parts of your entire bike, which is, of course, your drivetrain. Starting out with the Sram SX Eagle, the derailleur on it. I really like this derailleur. I have had a few issues with it, but nothing like fatal to it. The one issue that I've had is with my barrel adjuster. I think it was left a little too loose in terms of the tension that we had going through the cable. And what that allowed the drivetrain to do basically is to have the chain sort of go past the small sprocket on your cassette and then go into the wheel, which was bad. But fortunately, all the times this has happened, which it happened a couple times, it hasn't been fatal to the derailleur or the chain, or no issues with that. And thank goodness I was able to figure out how to adjust my barrel adjuster to fix that. So really, it's not the derailleur's fault, but rather my fault with the barrel adjuster. For the crank, you're getting the Sram SX Eagle. All of the drivetrain's basically going to be SRAM with this. So for your cassette, you're getting SRAM PG 1210 Eagle. And that's 12-speed, obviously. And then for your chain, the Sram SX Eagle, again, 12-speed. One of my favorite parts about this drivetrain is that it comes with a single speed, which is absolutely necessary. A single speed in the front, that is. So you only have the back where you're shifting. On my old bike, the Marlin, it had the front derailleur, the 3 in the front, and I really didn't like that because there was just so many issues with it. It just didn't work half the time. So I'm glad that they have the single speed in the front. So onto another issue that I've been having is with the bottom bracket on this bike. It is a threaded cartridge bottom bracket. And so that created a little bit of an issue because as I was riding, I noticed a little bit of moving back and forth on my pedals. So when I took a closer look, it turns out the bottom bracket itself was moving around in like the frame itself, which is obviously not good for your frame. So all I had to do to fix that was basically just tighten down that bottom bracket a lot more. But yeah, that was really weird because I didn't do anything to mess with the bottom bracket. So it must have been something with manufacturing. I was told that I might need another bottom bracket for that, but I haven't had the issue ever since I've tightened it down a lot more. I think it's seated a little bit better now. So hopefully we won't be having that issue again. A smaller issue that I have with the drivetrain, it comes stock with cruddy nylon pedals. I know most bikes do this. I really don't like that. If Trek were to fix that and have it come stock with their nice Bontrager Elite ones that I've replaced and put on my bike now, that would be huge because the pedals with metal pegs give you a lot more grip than the nylon ones. So I would definitely recommend that Trek do that because I hate having to replace, because it's $50 that you have to replace it. But if you do buy this bike, it's still a great purchase. You're just gonna have to replace that. So you're getting 160 millimeter rotors on this bike, super wide, very good for braking. Overall, I've loved the brake system with this bike, and I think it's perfect for the size of the bike and overall, because I have an XL frame size. And so I think these rotors are great for that. All right, moving on to the dropper, seat post, and saddle. So you're getting the Bontrager Arvada saddle with this bike. You know, it's just a normal saddle. It's very hard. Doesn't have a lot of grip to it, but it works. It certainly does work, and you can definitely upgrade it if you're interested. So for your dropper post, you're getting internally routed Trans-X JD YSP 18. Who named this? That's the name of your dropper post. And it's 361 millimeters in length. So overall, it's not a huge amount of travel on your dropper, but I would totally recommend to put it all the way down at your base level, basically. So you want to have the dropper as low as you can. So for my style of riding, when I have it up, my legs aren't going to be perfectly matched, but when it's low, it does get nice and low for me. So I would recommend having it as low as possible. So with the dropper post, there is one minor setback, and that is, of course, the seat kind of moves back and forth. The dropper post itself, like the post is literally moving kind of like this, like back and forth. And obviously that's not like an issue. It's not going to mess you up on the trails. And hopefully it won't break. I talked to the guys at the shop about it, and they said it shouldn't be an issue really. But it is kind of annoying because you don't want to have a bike on your first day have that sort of issue with it, and you think that your dropper is about to fall apart. And then one more issue with the dropper post is that when I try and bring it down by sitting on it basically and pulling the lever, kind of sticks a little bit, and it doesn't go completely smoothly. For example, the Fathom, which is the bike that my brother has, when you sit down and you pull the lever to put the dropper post all the way down, you're really going to have a nice smooth transition. But with the Roscoe, it kind of slides, it kind of sticks a little bit, and it's really weird because it leaves like a sort of a mark on the post itself. It does rub off, like it appears to be not something that's actually like putting marks in the dropper itself. It's not the nicest feature about it. So overall, it is great to have a dropper, but this isn't the highest quality dropper that you're going to be getting. After having gone over a lot of the issues that I've had with this bike, as well as many of the great things about this bike, I'm going to compile my favorite components and then the components I've had issues with. So I think my favorite, like hands down component has got to be the tires, so the wheels. Those are really good. So the tires, you're getting the Maxxis Rekon 27.5 plus size tires, and those just suit me perfectly because it makes climbing really easy. And they also do a lot in terms of suspension, sort of, because they're just so wide. As long as you're running tubeless, you can run them at a decently low tire pressure, and then you're going to be able to take just rocks and stuff just straight up with the tires. Obviously the suspension is very good, and that's going to be on the the top tier list of good components coming with this bike. But the tires themselves are able to handle just so much that I really have to put those at the top. Another really high quality going right along with the tires is the fork itself. So I really like the fork because it is air spring, super responsive, and no issues with it at all. It's super easy to set up. Just need a shock pump, and that's really about it with it. So another huge thing that has sort of failed on me at some points, but mostly my fault, is the drivetrain. So it's a really high quality components because Sram is a great drivetrain company. So I really do like the derailleur that comes with it. It's not bad. It's a good derailleur. The only issue that I've had is sort of a result of my own fault, not knowing how to adjust the barrel adjuster properly. So hopefully we won't be having any sort of issues similar to that in the future. I'll keep you guys posted on that. So onto a few things that I've been sort of disappointed by. It's really not a huge deal. Number one, the dropper post. So it works perfectly fine, and I really hope we're not going to have any issues with that down the road. The overall just quality of it is, it's a little bit lower than the rest of the bike. So is this bike worth $1,350? In my opinion, absolutely it is. When you realize what you're getting with this bike, which is of course a SRAM drivetrain, a Rockshocks fork, and then those beautiful Maxxis tires, along with those wide 27.5 rims, I would say that this bike is absolutely worth it, basically just completely on paper. And now moving on just from the paper, from my personal experience, this bike has held up extraordinarily well to everything that I've put it through. I have been riding this bike quite a bit, and no failures with the tires or with the fork or any of the things that are taking the most abuse from that. So I would say absolutely this bike is worth the price tag that Trek has put on it. The question is, would I recommend it? And I would say absolutely I would recommend this bike. It is only my second mountain bike that I've ever owned, and I'm going to continue to use this bike for as long as I possibly can because I really do personally love it, especially with those plus size tires. If you are in the market for this bike, I would say definitely go ahead with it. Again, there are going to be newer models that are coming out in the 2022 lineup, I think. And I haven't taken a look at those too much yet, but those do look certainly very interesting. So I would definitely also wait and see if those bikes come out and turn out to be much better. So with the newer models coming out, I do feel that the price for the Roscoe 7 2021 model could potentially drop. Not substantially because you're obviously still getting amazing parts with this bike, but it certainly could drop by a little bit, and that could potentially be of much more value to you than those higher quality parts because you don't really need those. I feel that this bike you could take on pretty much any trail, aside from Red Bull Rampage or any of those huge lines. You could take this on basically any trail that you want to, and you'd be totally fine. I would say that the Roscoe 7 2021 model is absolutely going to be worth it for you. For you. Please focus on my hand. Oh yeah, it focused on the hand. All right, thank you guys so much for watching Extreme Sports and More. I really hope that this video has helped you out. If it has, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, please consider checking out a bunch of our other videos. We do all sorts of mountain biking content, trail builds, other review videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.